friends. Are you ready for our weekly Lenormand reading? Today is Monday, February 2nd. It's the 2-2 portal. And then, I wanted to let you know, January 26th was Neptune that entered Aries, which is a once-in-a-lifetime transit. So we're very fortunate to have witnessed that in our lifetime. And then also, February 13th, Saturn enters Aries. What were you doing 30 years ago? You might be revisiting those same energies as well. I remember 30 years ago, I was quite busy, and I kind of feel like that's kind of coming back around. February 16th is President's Day, so I have to kind of chuckle because that's the last day of the year of the snake shedding its skin. And then February 17th is the lunar new moon in Aquarius, which also ushers in the year of the horse. So lots of activities going on in February, okay? First card out is what Spirit would like to speak with us about. So that's the child, okay? So then we've got the coffin. The coffin is an ending. So we have a beginning and an ending. Isn't that quite comical after what we just talked about? And then the lilies are in the center. The lilies are it's your lifestyle. So what were you doing 30 years ago? You know, some of you may not be 30 yet, but I know back when I was 30 is when I started, the mortgage business. And here we are 30 years later. And I feel like I even have more new beginnings in that same arena. So, everything is cyclical, right? It kind of has a way of coming back around, and all of the learning and the growth in between is what propels you into the new beginning, right? All of the wisdom, all of the knowledge that you learned over the course of time can now be applied to the next, cycle, right? The crossroads are up in the upper left-hand corner. That is a decision that needs to be made, but it's kind of my portal card. If you go to the right or you go to the left, you're going to experience two different things. So choices need to be made, and then the mice are there. So that could be, having a little bit of nervous energy with that. And, just know that, you can't make a wrong choice, right? I always say all roads lead to Rome, but sometimes those harder choices, need to be made, and the easy choice isn't always the best choice. The easy choice might lead to a harder outcome, or more challenging path. So just be mindful of that. Lead with your heart, because the heart is there, and use your past experience. And the stars are there, which is healing. But I also feel like it kind of sends the message of, let the stars be for signs, okay? So, just learn from the past, and then apply that towards your future, okay? Next card out is the sun. I love to see the sun. The sun is going to brighten everything up in this portrait. And it is challenging, but it also feels like hard work is paying off, okay? The house is in the center. That's your involvements, that are more personal. So your work and your family, your congregation kind of a feel. And then there are the fish and the flowers. So I feel like things are recovering on the financial front, but the fish also indicate abundance, okay? So the snake is there, and the snake can kind of, it has a very wise aspect about it, but it can be a little on the like navigational, challenging side of things. So just be careful with your spending. You might find that you have challenges with either house repairs or health concerns. You might need to budget. You might need to get a financial checkup feel to it. And then I see the flowers in the garden there, so that's a recovery feel. So things might be turning around kind of a feel. All right. And then we've got the book. The book is a mystery, but it's a new chapter, okay? And then we've got the lady and the gentleman right next to one another. So I kind of feel like that is, masculine, feminine energy working together, okay? So you don't, and I've said this before, too far left and too far right. Those can be very dangerous places to be. You need to be a little bit more balanced, okay? The clover is there. The clover is very positive. It's got a blessing feel attached to it, but it can be fleeting. So, what do they say? Short-term gain for long-term pain. I want you to try to be mindful of any changes that are occurring, to be more balanced and more in moderation, and more like an even feel to it. Okay, like your emotion, don't get too high or too low. You need to keep that in a balance, because the ship is there, and the ship, when it's on the water, if things get a little too rocky, everybody gets seasick. Okay, so you're going to want to just keep things level. Now the anchor is there, which is stability, and it's a stable type of a feel to it. So, anchor, and be grounded, that. I want you to focus on grounding, basically. All right, next card out is the Tower. The Tower is very official. It's the time of the past, father time, which is kind of sad. It has that Saturn feel about it. So, and then the Cavalier in the center, which is, news coming in, and it has a feeling of partnership to me with the bear and the fox. And then the stork, which is forward momentum, progress, improvement, could be migration to another city or area too, because the Tower is there. But I feel like all of my partnership cards are all on this portrait, so it has that team on the job feel, and then the higher up feel to it. So it could be your higher ups, your angels, your ancestors, your spirit guides, that feel, because the cross is there too. So that's very much spirituality. Now the clouds are there. The clouds are your thoughts, but they're psychological, so things that everything that we go through kind of has some significance. So that's where like synchronicities come into play. Everything is kind of interconnected and related. And the ring is there, which that kind of also indicates that where what goes around comes around feel to it. But it's also in the picture that I took, it's a grouping of when I look at it, I see diamonds, dancing diamonds. The sum of all of my ancestors are in this. My mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, my brother, and Mike. They're all indicated in my ring. So I feel like it's community involvement, but it's also ancestral. It's karmic. It's spiritual. It's all of it plays a role in the dynamics of our lives. So even the energies that we're dealing with, I'm dealing with them from my personal standpoint, and you're dealing with them from your personal standpoint. And we're going to see some commonalities, but overall, we all are experiencing the same, we're experiencing the full moon together, the new moon together, all the different transits. We're experiencing the economic conditions. We are experiencing family dynamics. So all of these all play a role in our day-to-day lives. So I'm trying to interpret them as best as I can. And yeah, I'll cite personal examples, but everybody's situation is just slightly different, right? Just like fingerprints, no two are alike, but they're similar, right? Now the upper left-hand corner are the crossroads. The crossroads, like I said before, there's a decision that needs to be made, or it could be that we are just at a crossroads where a decision must be made before a decision is made for you. And then I go back to that squirrel, the undecided squirrel. There's a lot of them in the middle of the road, right? So you still have to make a decision, but it needs to be well calculated, okay? So some thought placed in it, maybe, you know, experiences that in the past you might help you decide what is, going to work this time around. So we're back to, what were you doing 30 years ago and what worked and what didn't. Let's learn from our past experiences. I know, I am the cause and the effect of all of my life's choices, right? And we don't want to repeat the mistakes that we've made in the past, right? And the same is true, or the feeling is there with your children. You don't want your children to go through the same mistakes you went through, right? Learn from me, learn from my experiences, so that you can make a better, life for yourself. Okay, so there's definitely a breakthrough. I see challenges, but I feel like those challenges are starting to improve, because I've got the clover and the stork. Okay, so I feel like things are going to get ironed out. Okay, and then I see a new chapter in finances and in work. So that's partnerships with um, your peers or your partner. Could be your significant other too, because the gentleman is there. So I feel like if you work together, if you collaborate, if you brainstorm, if I feel like you could come to the resolution. Okay, I do see a lucky break here, and I do see some courage. Um, Courage is definitely highlighted in that mix. So, but a lucky break. So maybe that's oh, that's a hard one, because I also have the whip and the snake, which is kind of a troublemaker feel to it. Risk taker, troublemaker, and uh, you know, yeah, I'm not going to say that though. um, I feel like a blessing in disguise is here, because we've got the clover too, and what's meant for you will not pass you by. Feel to it, and I feel like things are starting to turn around, like a table turn kind of a feel. Um, let's not judge others, because sometimes, you know, the same sort of thing might happen to you, and there you go. But I do know that when people are judgy, generally it's because that person is triggering something within them that needs to be addressed too. But yeah, I just feel like, instead of um, telling another person what you would do if you were them, put yourself in their shoes. But it's easier said than done sometimes. But when you walk a mile in their shoes, then you can come back and offer some advice. And I don't like challenges or confrontation, or you know I don't like to see that. I would rather see some um negotiations and some positive resolution to challenges. Like, in other words, don't come to me with a problem unless you already have a solution to that problem. But sometimes we don't know all the answers, and sometimes, until they present themselves, until you know all the information, it's sometimes not as it appears to be. Like a false sense of what's going on. Don't jump to conclusions, for sure. And I just feel like there's, something going on behind the scenes that um, you might not know yet. So when those come to light, which the sun is there, then you'll be able to proceed knowing um, you know, all of the information. Then you can make a proper decision, right? It's kind of like how I am about having to make a decision. It's like, not that I have a hard time making a decision. I just want to know what all my options are, right? But I do see where there's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but that challenge could be a little bit of mentorship and coaching, and maybe um, financial. I know. I just see a blessing there. So there's some sort of a blessing in disguise feel where finances are concerned, and then you might need to seek an advisor or a professor or a professional. I mean, that specializes in that area of concern. So let's say it's finances, right? You're going to want to speak to a financial advisor. If it's about building a house, you're going to want to talk to a builder or an architect. Even if it's about a doctor, something medical, you need to speak to a healthcare professional. So sometimes we feel like we can solve our own problems, but not always. Sometimes we need outside help, to help us through. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Okay. That was loaded because there is so much activity going on in that whole area there, because we've got the fish, the fox, the snake, the whip, the bear, and the gentleman in the center. So there's lots going on in that one portrait. And I see the heart. So the heart is the things that bring you passion and joy, and you know things that inspire you. um, Follow your passion is definitely highlighted there. And I wouldn't let other people's opinions um, get in the way of you pursuing your goals. Okay. And that's kind of what's in that portrait, is what it's saying. You still have to follow your own purpose. Everybody has a calling, right? And mine, I felt like, was, being a mother. Well, my children are all raised and grown now, so now it frees up that time and space to learn more and to maybe pursue other passions and other goals and things like that. You know, Part of that would be your career, obviously, but the things that you find joy in, like hobbies or like for me, it's crafting and that sort of thing. But I also love adventure, being adventurous. So travel and you know getting out there and exploring is expanding your mind. You can't just sit stagnant. You have to continue to learn, and continue to grow. And your thoughts, you have to be um mindful of what you're thinking, because what you think you bring forth into reality. So if they're negative thoughts, then um you know they can be quite challenging. But if you keep your thoughts in the positive, too far left and too far right are not good places to be. I've said that. So try to keep that balanced. But if you're going to lean more towards anything, lean more towards positivity. Just don't be attached to the outcome. Let the outcome be unfold naturally. And sometimes things are meant to be a mystery, right? Or a pleasant surprise, or you know now I see the cross there. The cross can be, which, the cross is actually lands on the house of the cross. And the cross, it can be challenging. It can be, but it's karmic in nature, and it's spirituality, and it's, the things that are of importance and the things that we must do, responsibilities. You can't just get out there and play all the time. You have to handle business. So that's what I'm saying. Work hard, play hard, but you really need to focus on the things that are calling your attention. So, if something's going on in the house, you need to address that. Something's going on with your health, you need to address that. Something's going on with your children, you need to address that. You have to handle those small problems before they become bigger problems. But, I know sometimes, some of the hardest choices that we make are never the easiest ones. And, if no pain, no gain. But, if we take the easier road or the easy choice, it tends to be a hard road. But if we handle the hard things first, then things become easy. Okay, I know it sounded long-winded, but now the lilies are there, and then the child. That kind of indicates grandparent, and the wisdom that the grandparent can offer the child. And then the bear is there, so that's kind of mother or nurturer. And then the fox is there, which is that wise counsel. So you know how we go through phases and stages, and then now we've entered the stage of, and I can't help but think of my Saturn return. When I enter my third Saturn years, they indicate empowerment. I've worked so hard getting to where I am today that now I would just like to have fun, but I still have responsibilities. Some people have become grandparents. I can see that in that portrait. And our ancestors are also highlighted in that. So we are the sum total, of our lineage, our ancestors. And we always want better for our children than what we had, right? Well, then our ancestors wanted better for us than what they had. So there is a procession there of a positive forward movement, and it's evolutionary of sorts. Look how far we've come in 100 years. So forward thinking, forward momentum, handle things as that are of importance that come up, and don't ignore or delay or you know pay attention to the details, pay attention to the sometimes you'll get like thoughts that come in and you're like, I need to address that. Well, it could be, hey, I'm out of this, go make a grocery list. But it could be, hey, I need to really focus on my health. Okay, so maybe what can you do to improve your health? Okay, so that's just the energies that it's given. Address the things that come up as they come up. So don't procrastinate. In decisions and change are highlighted. So, I see the breakthrough, but, there is like an aha feel to it. And I feel like the moon is a new phase. It's also needs the sun to offer, or it needs the sun to shine. So you still need clarity. You still need to, get it figured out. But the answers are coming because the key is there. And patience is a virtue. And I know that's one thing I don't have is a lot of patience. I like to instant gratification, and that's got me into trouble. So I do see a little bit of a little bit of a gossipy situation. And hopefully that's coming to an end because, silence is indicated here. So maybe, things are starting to, settle and calm and, put to rest, feel to it. Let's see. Yeah, I definitely see a challenge there, but a breakthrough with the challenge. So I like to see that. A little bit of a bumpy road. Try to maintain that moderation and balance. And I see planting seeds, so maybe get ready, for spring, start your seeds indoors. But, all that, like to preparation is always helpful too. So, if you can prepare the night before for your next day, I know that was always helpful for me. And, change is coming, but not everything has been figured out yet because the book is there. But a new chapter, that horse being ushered in hopefully is going to get things moving forward. And I see maybe a little bit of I see regret, but I also see a little bit of an apology. So, maybe make peace with or make amends is highlighted. And birds and clouds, that can just be, you know, that can be conversations that might feel either draining or might feel, pressurized kind of a feel to it. So, sometimes it's not easy to talk about things, but, I know communication is definitely the key, and nothing gets, fixed with the same energy that created the problem in the first place. So maybe, come from a well, the heart's there. So, lead with love, and use your softer energies, because, when you get upset, you're only using 10% of your brain. You need to focus and, be kind, and, you know, keep in mind what the goal is here, and that is for unity, for everybody to come together, work together. It's not about separation, it's about community, and it's about coming together. Oh, let's see, what else do I see? Yeah, I just feel a huge shift, would be the word I would use. A huge shift is coming. And there might be something abroad, at a further distance, and movement. So it could be going on a trip, but it could be, just a new leveling up feel. And the ship is a success feel to it. And in my Lenormand deck, which I have to laugh because I run my cards in the morning too, and the ship was the clarifier. It says, a ship carrying gold sails straight into view, lined in its hold are fortunes for you. If you should travel with a special friend, memories unfurl for years upon end. That's a lovely message. So, well, folks, I hope you enjoyed the reading. And if you'd like a more personal reading, I would love to sit down with you. And until next week, you take very good care of yourself.